talk about, and then for those who want, after you've listened and thought about it and asked questions, when you're really clear, to formalize your commitment to being a Buddhist in this little ceremony that's called taking refuge in the three jewels, and then the second little ceremony, the second part, very short, both of them, is where those who would like can then take the 5 or some of the 5 layperson's vows. And we'll talk before this about both refuge and the vows, to see the logic behind them, to understand them before we do. So we'll do that. We'll talk about, okay? So we think we're going to just do a little motivation. You've got a prayer. I've got a prayer on the screen, please. Do the refuge prayer. We'll do a little prayer here, set ourselves in the right direction. This prayer reminding ourselves of refuge, and the second 2 lines our aspiration to do this activity with a bodhicitta motivation. Because even though you see, we'll discuss where the refuge and lay vows fits in the entire path, it's actually part of the Hinayana path, but because we're on the Mahayana path, we're going to make our motivation will be the Mahayana one. So we'll have this motivation. We'll discuss all that. What's all this? That's what the refuge prayer, darling.
Yeah.
It's a different sheet. What's all this about? Why are you using a different one? What's all this? This is all different. Why you got a different sheet?
Oh, this is not you mean it's not the regular Sangha Chodan?
This is not the normal one you ever show me. It doesn't matter. It's still the right prayer, but it's not.
That's not the right one?
Yeah, it is, but it's usually not this one you show. Well, tell us, Okay. Never mind, it's the fine one. It'll do. It'll okay. I don't wonder why you said that's fine. So can people see it on the sheet? Can you read it? It's a bit light, isn't it, with the sun shining on it? We'll do the English words. So this, the first 2 lines, as you can see, it's reminding us of our reliance on the Buddha and his Dharma and the Sangha. What are you doing, darling?
I'm trying to make
What?
Okay, here it is.
Thank you so much. And then the second 2 lines, as it says, by the merits, and what merit, we'll discuss all these things, I create through listening to these teachings, listening to the teachings and then doing this activity of taking refuge, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. So that the first 2 lines are reiterating our reliance on the Buddha and on the Dharma and the Sangha, and the second 2 lines are expressing this motivation, this reason for doing this activity, being together to do this activity of listening to the teachings, okay? So we can do one, we'll do English and Tibetan if you've got it. We'll do English, you do English one time. So I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. So by the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, to these teachings, and by taking refuge, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. So I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. And by the merits I create from listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order and taking refuge, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye, Chodam, Soke, Chobram La, Jancho, Baru, Jagni, Kyapsu Chi, Dagi, Chernyen, Gipe, Sonam Ki, Drola, Penshir, Sangye, Wabasho. Okay. So let's talk about what it means, taking refuge in the Buddha. Well, it's like it's sort of. I think it's very. We can see that we're kind of. We like structure and shape. I think it helps our mind. We divide things into days and weeks and months and mornings and afternoons, and we divide things, and somehow it helps having a structure. So here what we're doing is kind of. And also formalizing, when you're going to celebrate something, you want to go out or have a party. And we get that. It makes it more strong for us. And certainly when people say commit to each other in a relationship, we call it getting married, but whatever you want to call it, you formalize it in this group, and you have witnesses to it, and it makes it more powerful somehow. But the most fundamental point in the Buddhist view is because everything we think and do and say leaves very strong imprints in the mind. So when you decide to do something and you state what it is and you commit, I will do that, then it becomes very powerful. It's sort of, I think, logical, psychologically. Yourself, you can say, for 27 years, you can say, I should go on a diet. But until you say, I will go on a diet, nothing will change. So this I will, volition, intention, this is actually very powerful in the Buddhist perspective. This is the most fundamental state of mind, the starting point. As Lama Yeshe says, everything exists on the tip of the wish. The thought, I will, is powerful. So what we're doing here is, for those who, so the criterion of, or one of the criteria, but the main criterion I suggest for doing this ceremony is that you've listened to the teachings, you've thought about the meaning, you've tried to put a little bit into practice, and somehow, the simplest way to put it is it suits your mind, but you need to be very clear, like anything. You've got to commit to a relationship. Look at the due diligence you have to do for the person. Look, you're going to commit to a year's course in yoga or a 5-year course at college or university. You really do check up. You really do your market research, don't you? You really, because you want to be confident that you're not wasting your time and going in the wrong direction. Well, that's very much the point here, So this formalizing of our commitment to being a Buddhist, known as, you're formalizing your reliance upon the Buddha, his teachings, and then there's what they call these the 3 jewels. It's a term they use in Buddhism. It's been around for centuries, since India. The Buddha, the Dharma, the teachings, and the Sangha, the spiritual community, the spiritual assembly. So, and again, that's pretty logical. If you want to commit to tennis or music, you need, the musician or the music, the composer, the person. You need the knowledge about music in that person's mind, and you need a community of people. We can see that gives us tremendous courage. We're not isolated. We need it to have other people who are connected, whom we can discuss with, whom we can relate to, and we're on the same path. It's very logical. We think of it like that. So okay. So then, what is the Buddha? What is the Dharma? What is the Sangha? Well, they talk about it, in sort of like 2 ways. And one is sort of conventionally, and then one they talk about is the absolute Buddha, absolute Dharma, absolute Sangha. And I guess this kind of makes sense. So the actual Buddha, okay, Buddha, the word Buddha, I don't speak Sanskrit, but it seems I always like this a lot. This is very tasty. The etymology of this word, Buddha, is the implication is it indicates, it implies the utter eradication from one's mind of all the neuroses, ego, fears, drama, attachment, anger, jealousy, low self-esteem, all the nonsense that we're very familiar with, and that we in our culture and our psychology and our neuroscience would take as absolutely normal parts of a normal person. But the Buddha's view is quite dramatic, quite radical. He has found from his own direct experience, from having practiced, this is his direct experiential findings, that these states of mind are not at the core of our being and can be removed. And this is the absolute basis of all Buddhist practice. Learning to, the first level of our practice is to learn to rid the mind utterly of these neuroses, these delusions. And this is a long-term job. Don't hold your breath. They're primordially deep. So the indication of this word, Buddha, it implies that. The second syllable, da, implies the development to perfection of everything else in your mind. All the virtues, all the goodness, wisdom, clarity, kindness, love, self-confidence. These are simple, simple words, and we are very clear about what they mean. We identify. But like I said, this is quite surprising to hear this, because an ordinary, you go to a neuroscientist or even a very nice like a therapist, and you say, "Would you please give me methods to get rid of all anger, all attachment, all fears, all jealousy, all ego?" They will laugh at you like you're crazy, Because why? Because we give equal status to these states of mind, I think, in our models of the mind, in our world. So this is quite radically different. We want to try and understand Buddha, we better hear this clearly. And this underpins all of our practice, So the word Buddha said a person who has achieved that. So this person called Buddha, who is he? Who is this person? Well, now, first of all, okay, let's go to the relative level first, the conventional Buddha, the absolute Buddha. Well, conventionally, there's this person whom we can, identify in space and time, Indian, 2,500 years or something ago, lived in India, and came out of this extraordinary system. As I always like to quote the Dalai Lama, he always says it was these amazing Indians more than 3,000 years ago who were the ones who began the investigation to the nature of self. That's the term they use, Atman. What is a self? Who am I? What is a person? This is pretty intense, With respect, we probably thought it was Freud 100 years ago, with respect to us. but these amazing genius Indians. So we generally know Indians, generally the philosophical views, we call it Hindu, but not what that means and whether it's accurate, but there are very many different views at the time. And only really now, I think, modern thinkers are starting to investigate Indian thinking, but in particular Buddhist thinking, because Buddha came out of that system, went as far as he could go, and then he diverged in his own direction. In particular, in relation to his own direct experiential findings about the nature of self. You know, so that's, and then since then we have what we call Buddhism. You know, and so he is this person who lived in India. And then these teachings, so that's the Buddha, that's the conventional person, this person. So, you know, when you see pictures of statues, you see this person with a yellow robe on, with his right shoulder bare, and you look at even current photos of these, you know, sadhus in India, they're going to be dressed just like that. Well, that's how they dress, Zen. And he was one of those. And then he went off in his own direction, did his own thing. He didn't call himself, I'm now a Buddhist. He didn't say like that, I don't think. But he presented his teachings, and as a result developed his, you know, collected his own disciples, and then slowly what's known, certainly in English, the use of the term anyway, Buddhism kind of got coined, you know. So the relative person is that person. So then he taught things. So this is a crucial question. And this is something really important for us, especially if we've come from a Jewish Christian background, you know, where the thought of religion, the concept of religion equals the creator. For us, that goes without saying. It equals a creator, you know? But not for the Buddha. This is where he's radically different, radically. He does not posit a creator. He would suggest philosophically it's a mistake. He's not being rude, but his own direct findings, his own view of reality are fundamentally different from that point of view. Fundamentally different. So then you have to ask the question, like this person, I always quote this, it's the only time I've ever had this question, in New Zealand, years and years ago. Remember this fellow, happened to be a scientist. He asked the question, and I said, no one's ever asked me before since, and it's a great question. He said, who revealed all these teachings? I mean, you're going to see there's bucket loads of literature about Buddhism, just in the world, in English alone. It's unbelievable. It's very, the West seems to love Buddhism. You know, there's so much published. So he said, who revealed the teachings to the Buddha? It's a brilliant question. But of course, because Buddha doesn't assert a creator, it's not a valid question. But that's the assumption, isn't it? We assume when it's spiritual philosophy, it comes from on high. It's not coming, and that's the key point. To say that Christianity came directly from the experience of a regular human being who then from practice became God, that is the worst, most shocking statement you can make to a Muslim or a Christian. You see my point? This is a really important point to understand. I'm not criticizing, but and even in Hindus, even though they talk about, you know, developing this amazing quality to oneself and liberation, they still, everything comes back to this fundamental essence called God. You know, I don't quite know how they define it all, but that's an interesting point. You know, this is interesting, might be interesting for Vivek. You know, I mean, when I was in Mumbai a couple of years ago, Vivek, and of course, Indian came to the class, and they already got all excited at the end and all wanted to take refuge. And they're all, you know, human beings who might not be that, have some kind of practice, but very devoted to their own path, of course, their own devotion, their own faith. And then I said, well, basically, you're going to take refuge in the Buddha. He's fundamentally different from many other, you know, the views. He doesn't posit the creator energy, you know, so they got to be really clear which path you want to take. So everybody decided no, they wouldn't, because they didn't want to give up their view. So you've got to be clear what you want. You've got to be clear the view. So indeed, these days, lots of Indians, you know, are now committing to become Buddhists, to committing to being Buddhists, like indeed 2,500 years ago, you know. So anyway, the point about this thing, who revealed the teachings to the Buddha, I said to this man in answer, I said, well, you know, would you ask who revealed the teachings about relativity to Einstein? Of course, he and everybody else laughed. I mean, what a joke, you know, because and that's what we think about as science. We make this absolute distinction. And isn't it, in our culture, that comes back to Mr. Galileo, isn't it? When he was naughty enough to actually question the dogma of the Catholic Church, he was practically burned at the stake. Because he was looking at observing, he's looking at his own direct experience based on observation, and it contradicted, you know, the prevailing views. So then, you know, in the end now, as a result of this, we've now got religion over one side and scientific thinking over another, and they seem to be completely different in our mind, you know. What's curious about the Buddhist one is many teachings are very similar, many sharing with not just Buddhism, not just with Christianity, in Hindu or Islam, but many philosophies, you know, many similarities. I think many paths share similar views. But there's fundamental difference in Buddhism. Buddha is more like Einstein, I'm not being sarcastic, I'm not being silly, than he is Jesus Christ, from the perspective of God, from the perspective that the Buddha is coming from observation. So then, of course, we go, what are you talking about observation? How can you possibly observe a past life? Because we all know Buddhism talks about past lives. Well, that means you have to understand what he means by the mind. It's radically different from the view of the mind in the modern world. The modern world would say the brain is the mind. Well, Buddha's first point, sorry, mate, no, your mind is not physical. So very, very many different views. But in order to understand where Buddha's coming from and understand how it's all coming from experience, from observation, not from revelation, and therefore can be done by each individual person, and therefore can be proved directly from one's own experience, we have to understand what he means by the mind. We have to understand what he means by Buddha, the qualities. These are the points that are quite important for us. We've got to delve a little bit more into this in our culture because we have so many assumptions about what we think religion is, you know. So from the Buddhist perspective, you ask me, Tibetan, are you religious? I say, well, of course I am. Oh, so you believe in God? And I say, excuse me, you know, what are you talking about? Of course not. So we've got to be clear what we mean by, so religion is just another term, is a term for a certain type of philosophy, isn't it? You could say that. That's all, religious philosophy. So Buddha is this person who lived 2,500 years ago, who went as far as he could go in the system, these genius Indians before him, his you know, the practitioners, the yogis, the scholars, and many of the findings that they came to, he also agrees with. So the views of karma, the view about the mind being more subtle, all of these are his same observation, same view, but he diverged particularly in relation to his own experiential findings about the nature of self. And that's, of course, is where we have all the teachings about emptiness and so on and so forth, you know. But basically the Buddha, so the relative Buddha is this person who lived historically, who went through his system, continued on meditating, and eventually achieved this Buddhahood, rid the mind utterly of the neuroses and developed to perfection the goodness. And these words are pretty simple, but if you study the qualities of a Buddha, it would be pretty mind-blowing. And the point that Buddha's making is, you know, this experience of becoming a Buddha, this Buddhahood, this eradication of all neuroses and perfection of all the goodness is what everybody can accomplish. That's the radical difference, you know. Everybody can accomplish this. And as far as the creator concept, I mean, there's extensive teachings in Buddhism at a philosophical level about how he argues with those views philosophically, you know, that there can be some essence that's fundamental, that's uncaused, that's the source of all the universe. No such concept like that in Buddhism. And Buddha's view about the mind and who we are and where we're coming from is we don't need creating, you know. So his views of what the mind are very, very different. His views about what our potential is are radically different, you know. And the concept of no creator is really quite shocking if you think of yourself as religious. Well, certainly religious philosophers, people who have faith in a creator, I'm not criticizing, you know, the Buddhist view is quite shocking. You can say you can become perfect. You know, I always tell this story too. Years ago in Melbourne, where I come from, a friend of mine who's part of the Catholic University there, they invited me. She knew I'd been to school with her at this Catholic convent in the 50s and everything, when I was at school, 50s and 60s. And they invited me to speak at a conference at the Catholic University. And I got there that morning ready for my talk, but I didn't know what to talk about. So I looked up the dictionary and I looked at the definition of God. Well, 3 essential qualities, it said: infinite wisdom, infinite compassion, infinite power. I thought, well, that's interesting, because they're the 3 essential qualities of a Buddha from the Buddhist perspective. So here we are with 2 different views, 2 different countries, completely different, but coming to a similar conclusion. But the radical difference is, of course, that the interpretation of that energy in the Christian view, for example, and the Muslim one as well, is it's that being has no cause, is permanent, unchanging, and is the source of everybody else. Whereas the Buddhist view is those qualities Every person can accomplish them. Every person can become a perfect being, become perfectly wise, perfectly compassionate, and infinitely powerful. So that's shocking for the Christians. So anyway, my talk was, that was 20 minutes. My talk was the similarities between the definition of God and Buddha. I don't know if the Catholics liked it, but that was my talk. Anyway, I find these points important. If we like Buddhism, and you're going to commit to Buddhism, you better know what you're doing, you know. Buddha, who's this bloke, you know? Excuse me, it's probably bloke. Okay, so no creator in Buddhism, and big difference. So many people, you know, like, you know, so like I said to Vivek before, when I was in Mumbai, when I said about this point very clearly, Buddha is not a certain God. Then of course all the Indian, these guys, all these people there at the talk who love the Buddhist teachings, they love Lord Buddha, but that wasn't their path. So of course they didn't take refuge. You know, you've got to commit. You can't say you're in love with Fred and go off and marry Joe. You've got to make a decision. It's a bit like that, you know. I'm not being silly, but get my point. Because you're committing to something. You've chosen it. And I think this is where it's an interesting point. You can look at all of Buddhism, you can all of Christianity, all of Islam, and you can see many similarities. There's no question about that. But if you want to start going into it deeply, it gets narrower and narrower. So you can say, oh, I love yoga. I'm sure if you come to this place here, you've got 17 different teachers, all teaching 17 different ways of teaching yoga. And you begin with yoga, you do Mary one day and Jinnah the next. But slowly, you like Mary. So more and more you start to see Mary has got more and more specific approach. And you put your big toe this way, but Jinnah will say, put your big toe that way. But you've got to decide which one you're going to follow. You can't do both. So you've got to make a choice, you know. But as you progress more deeply, it becomes evident where you belong on your path. And you've got to be very clear about that. I mean, when I first met the Buddhism, Australia, in the mid-70s, and I remember, I didn't have no idea, Zen, Tibetan, I had no idea of anything. I just knew I liked these people, and I liked what they were saying. I liked Buddhist teachings, you know, but it became evident. It was my path. It became evident. It fit my mind. I had to check. I did a month's retreat, another month, and a couple of months, and then took refuge, and, you know, here you are. Let it unfold. But there needs some clarity at the beginning. So you be confident about the Buddha and his teachings. You listen to them, you hear, you can't realize all the teachings first, clearly, but you know, something resonates in it. But I would say a fundamental point is you've got a comfort zone about there being no creator. Some people, for them, religion equals creator. So it's just too weird to say there's no creator. So that point's kind of an important point for us, I'd suggest. So then, but the other one is you'd read the teachings and you'd think about them and you'd listen to them. You'd go to classes, you go on Zoom, you go to here, you do a retreat maybe, you read, you think about it, and it just kind of, it resonates. You know, you check it carefully. You don't just get all emotional about it. You use your common sense. You analyze what you do understand. You try to put into practice. And then so at some point, it feels correct. Like that's you're prepared to commit. And it's personal. You don't need to go around with a badge on saying you're a Buddhist. No one else needs to know. You have to confess to your Catholic mother. She doesn't need to know you're a Buddhist. It's your business. It can be completely private, you know. It's not like some external thing. Okay, me and my 14th century robes, that's external, but that's business. That's another matter, isn't it? So, okay, the Buddha then. So, but then, okay, then relative Buddha, this person. So what's the absolute Buddha mean? Well, it's very simple. And this is really showing us the Buddhist view of what the mind is. So mind or consciousness in Buddhism are virtually synonymous. So it's a crucial point. So this is coming from his own direct findings, his own direct experience. I can't stress that point enough because we're so used to believing that religion is something that someone has made up and you can believe it. So we sort of feel you can make up your own because you have to believe it. I mean, that is so bizarre, with respect. You would not say that when it comes to math. Well, I can think that 1 + 1 is 3. Why not? Well, why not is because no one will agree with you. You'll just fight with everybody. It'd be very uncomfortable. And there's certain rules that have been established in what's called math, that 1 + 1 is 2, you know? So it's got to be experiential. It's so crucial. And just to believe something is very bizarre, actually. Believing, if you say, you know, you can say, oh, I believe in mathematics. You can say that. We would never say it. But if you don't know math, you should say it. Because you don't know math, you just believe in it. And you can get away with that because enough people can help you. But if your mother said, go buy me 5 oranges, and you have no basis for judging whether that's 5 or not, then knowing math is necessary. Believing is one thing, but it's a bizarre idea, and I never use that word ever once in my life, ever. Oh, I have to believe in reincarnation, do I? No, don't believe in anything. And it's also equally strange because materialist people, philosophical materialists, say, I don't believe in anything. They say it like that. And from the Buddhist perspective, that's a very bizarre idea because everybody believes something. I mean, a person who's a philosophical materialist, but who doesn't look into anything, has never looked into anything, never proved anything, says, they don't say, I believe my brain is my mind. Because it's the prevailing view, they say that, but the brain is the mind. Well, excuse me, Buddha disagrees. So we really got to be cautious how we talk, and we're so arrogant, Everybody believes in something. We all believe, but have we proved it? That's another discussion. That's why I like to say what we're doing with Buddhism is taking it as our working hypothesis. It sounds a bit of a grand statement, but it's very logical. And 1 + 1 is 2 is a hypothesis for you until you prove it when you go home and do your homework. That's a fact. It's a really important point. We say, but relativity is science. Someone's proved it. But then I have to say, well, have you proved it? Of course you haven't. Therefore, it's belief for you until you proved it too. But we don't think that way, but it's how it should be. So it's your hypothesis until then, It's a really important point. It's not just a plane of words. So anyway, Buddha, this person, the relative Buddha. So the absolute Buddha is the actual enlightened mind itself. And this is where it gets very different from the perspective of the neuroscientific view. Because we're not discussing the brain here. We're not discussing the physical in any way or form. We're discussing mind or consciousness, which by definition for the Buddha is not physical. So you could argue that's the one thing they share with Christianity. One of the things. Christianity would argue that there is a non-physical thing, but they call it a soul. Hindus call it a self. It's not physical. It's some fundamental essence. The Greeks even refer to it as an essence. Buddha uses simply the word mind, which is surprising to us. Because when we say mind, we mean this one up here. But he means thoughts, feelings, emotions, unconscious, subconscious, instinct, intuition. The entire spectrum of our inner being is mind or consciousness. That's the first point. So in other words, it's got the grosser level of cognition, sensory and conceptual, but there are these way more subtle levels of capacity for cognition. And these genius Indians, well before the Buddha, were the ones who discovered this and developed this brilliant psychological skill called concentration meditation, which we use to cultivate samadhi, this profoundly subtle level of focus within our own mind. This is radical. There's no equivalent in modern psychology, I have to say that. So your mind is not physical. Your consciousness goes much more subtle level. The grosser level, we've got sensory and conceptual, which is the level we function at in this body. We have these much subtler levels of cognition. And when you've accomplished this samadhi, and this is a technique that's been around for 3,000 years, well before the Buddha, then you'll see a person who had accomplished this subtle level of mind, they would look like they would, because they completely ceased the gross conceptuality and the gross sensory consciousness. Of course, that's mystical to us. But this is not mystical for the Buddha, it's practical psychology. This is called psychology. Just the Buddha didn't speak Greek, but it is the mind. Buddhist spirituality is Buddhist psychology, no contradiction. So your mind is not physical, it goes to far more subtle levels. The other crucial point is it's not the handiwork of anybody else. This is a very shocking difference. It is not the handiwork of your parents. Yes, you get a body from your mother and father, no argument. Brain, DNA, genes, all of this you get from your mother and father, no problem. But the way I would say it, without insulting neuroscientists, is that physical level, the brain, etc., they are simply physical indicators of what's happening in the mind, which is not physical. So we can't prove this immediately. Clearly we can't. So that we have to base our discussion here and all of Buddha's teachings on this hypothesis, if you like, our hypothesis. He's proved it. It's up to us to speak. And remember, the Dalai Lama says to us Westerners, if you're following Buddha's methodology, you've decided, and you get to a certain point where you actually prove he's wrong, then of course you must reject him. We really have to remember that. That's just like you would with any scientist. Just like you would. Not just sitting in there, spacing out and believing in something. That's complete superstition. So your mind is not physical. Your mind has much subtler levels. Your mind is not the handiwork of mummy and daddy, and nor is it the handiwork of a creator. You don't need a creator. That view completely in Buddhism is he disagrees with that from his own observation, something rude. So therefore, if your mind, and the other one, the other point that of course is unique to the Hindu and the Buddhist view, is that your consciousness doesn't begin in your mother's womb, which is when both the Christian teachings and the Muslim ones and the Jewish ones and the materialist ones all suggest that you begin in your mother's womb. Well, actually, I've heard the Jews tell me that God doesn't put a soul in there for a few months, which is why for them, abortion before that point is not killing somebody. But for Christian teaching, by definition, what causes the egg and sperm to come together is God putting a soul there. So God, in that sense, creates you. That gives you the essence. Not for the Buddha. And the materialist, of course, is just that you are only the egg and the sperm. But the Buddhist view is what comes into the egg and sperm that causes it to develop into your fetus is the entry of your consciousness from before. So think of your consciousness, they even use the term like a mental continuum, a kind of river of mental moments. If you did a little kind of, it's a good meditation to do to try to get a sense of this beginninglessness of mind. And that's a pretty hilarious concept for us. Because the Buddha posits this law of cause and effect. It's one of the most fundamental laws. He says there's a natural law that just runs the universe, the law of cause and effect. That whatever exists at this millisecond in time is the product of a series of causes. And so we would agree with that. That's called science. And if we're a Christian, we would agree, would say God is the main cause and so on and so forth. But the Buddhist teachings are very extensive on trying to show how the causes have to be related to the thing itself, not an external cause. Anything that's external is merely a secondary cause. So the consciousness itself is this river of mental moments. This moment of my own cognition comes from a previous millisecond of my cognition. And that millisecond of my cognition can only come from the previous millisecond of my cognition. Now, if you keep tracking that back, you're going to get back to the first second of conception. So clearly, you have to go back to the millisecond before that. Where was your consciousness? Well, your egg was in mummy's body, sperm was in daddy's body. God or Buddha has nothing to do with it. And your consciousness has its own continuity the previous second, before it got to this body, and a few weeks before that, it was in a previous body. All this is dealt with incredible depth in all the Buddhist literature, okay? And so then you think, well, maybe I began the life before that. Well, this is the key point, and it's kind of a sort of a demented one for our mind. If we posit the law of cause and effect, if we posit a law of cause and effect, how can there possibly be a thing that is an effect that doesn't have a cause? So how can there be a first moment? And that's why there's extensive teachings I know in Christianity about proving there can be a first cause, which of course they call God. Buddha would disagree totally. Just by definition, it's not viable. By definition, if cause and effect is the law, then you always have to go to a previous moment. And you can never therefore find a first moment, which is the nuttiest thing we've ever heard. I mean, to hear that your mind is beginningless and the universes are beginningless and that matter is beginningless, and it is like beyond hilarious, for our minds. And Buddha would say, because we have this instinctively, deeply ingrained wrong view about things having been permanent and set in stone and absolute. So it all comes down to Buddha's observation, Buddha's philosophical views, and then which have to be then internalized through meditation and proved to be true by oneself. So your mind is beginningless and indeed is endless. It's beyond ridiculous, for us. And the law of cause and effect is the law that runs the universe. It's the law within which our minds run. This is where this word karma comes in. I don't know what it means. The law of karma is such that every millisecond of what any sentient being, any mind possessor, the term in Tibetan is very delicious, Sem Chen, a mind possessor. For the Buddha, there are trillions of mind possessors, humans, animals, all beings we can't see, all realms of it, kinds of realms of existence, very similar to the Christian observation, very similar to the Muslim observation, many similarities, other types of existence, other types of suffering beings, of happy beings, realms of existence. All of these minds, every millisecond, are just running within this law, such that whatever we think and do and say programs our mind. Buddha would have liked that, or sows seeds in our mind. And then those seeds will ripen in the future in that continuity of mental moments as experiences. So in this sense, His Holiness Dalai Lama often says that karma, the law of cause and effect, is like self-creation. You don't need creating by an external force. That for Buddha is not viable. So this is where all the teachings in Buddhism comes to practice, which we're discussing. Whatever's in my mind, I put it there. You don't blame your mother and father. I'm very sorry. And you can't blame God. Apparently Italians and Argentinians blame God. I was a Catholic and you never blame God. It's very naughty. My father would say rude words about God. You wait for God to come to the ceiling. You know? So this law of karma is fundamental to the whole Buddhist teaching. It's the Buddhist view of reality. Buddhist view of happiness, Buddhist view of suffering, Buddhist view of what the universe is, where it comes from, who we are. All of this is explained in this concept, this view, the view of the law of karma. And it plays out in our minds. And our minds go before conception and will go after death. This is the Buddhist view. So in many ways, very different. So what do we do with this? We take it as our working hypothesis. Let's leave it, just leave it there. Meanwhile, we start where we are and we go forward, we move with it. And the point is, and this is why I find it very powerful, very encouraging. You know, if you read a cookbook, you know that reasonably, unless the cook stole his mother's recipes, you know they came from the cook's experience. It's sort of logical. We know that. If a person writes a book, okay, we can be a bit crummy in the West and we can all write books about anything, thinking we're smarty pants and we're hopeless. Especially when it comes to spiritual stuff. Any Westerner wants to write their own book. It's unbelievable, you know. But when it comes to any body of knowledge, if there's a book about that body of knowledge, you have to deduce that person has that experience. It's come from their own experience, especially a cookbook. I mean, look at the rigor and the discipline of putting out a cookbook. You check the thing 37 times before you dare put that recipe in the book. So where did it come from? That person's mind. Not from the sky, not revelation, not made up. That's the Buddhist approach, very much the Buddhist approach, you know. So check what you read, because a lot of rubbish is written. So much rubbish in the West. We're so arrogant, you know. You do one weekend course, you have some kind of revelation, you write a book. I mean, it's just so rude, you know. So the Buddhist views are coming from this person called Buddha. Not just Buddha, back there 2,500 years ago. There have been thousands, millions of people since him who've taken his methodology seriously and have entered into the path and have come to the same conclusions and the same experiences as he did. Like, you know, I use the same example. My mother was a classical musician. So she taught me Bach's music. Well, Bach's dead, you know. Hundreds of years ago, the bloke died. So my mother effectively was Bach for me. Where'd she get it from? Her teacher. Where'd they get it from? Their teacher. Where'd they get it from? And you could track it back in an unbroken chain to Bach. So it's a living lineage of actual knowledge. That's very much the Buddhist teachings. Well, it should be authentic like that, not just made up rubbish, you know. Any body of knowledge, we're saying it's the same. Science, anything, music, we really, you know, we really honor lineage when it comes to serious things like music. I remember one time, reading about one person, a musician, an academic who wrote an entire book about one particular instrument, a car horn. Who was that? American musician, composer who wrote a whole orchestral piece, modern, like a jazz one. He was white. And one of the instruments was a car horn. So there's this entire book written about whether it was a Chevrolet or, I mean, I'm joking with it, you know, but taking lineage seriously. I think it's incredibly, we all understand it in our culture. Well, that's the approach in Buddhism. So this is knowledge. I say you don't have to believe a word of it. What is it? Don't believe a word. Please check it out. You know, with that approach, you can be more relaxed about it, not just swallow it whole, you know. Be superstitious. Okay, so getting to the point, the absolute Buddha is the actual Buddha, meaning this is again the Buddhist view. Once you have gone on this path and you gradually purify your mind, you go through the stages of practice, you let go of all the delusions, you achieve all the perfection. Eventually, you don't need bodies. You don't need to be reborn. You don't need bodies. These are the fruit of past karma. We don't need these. So when your mind is perfected and you become a Buddha mind, you don't need to have a body. You don't need a grosser level of existence. Your mind is as pure. And this is very similar to the concept of God. As a Catholic, when I was a kid, I loved the idea that God is everywhere. You know, this energy is everywhere. That's how Buddhism talks. When you're finally accomplished Buddhahood, your consciousness, which is not physical, is no longer confined by space or time or matter. It can only pervade wherever there is existence. It can only cognize that which exists, which is this perfect wisdom. It can only have this infinite compassion for all beings. and it can only have this infinite power to do whatever needs to be done, including manifesting in bodies for the sake of sentient beings. That's how they talk, you know. So absolute Buddha is that mind. But what good is that? We can't access that mind. So out of compassion, the Buddha beings who've achieved Buddhahood manifest in bodies looking like you and me. And that's the relative Buddha. In other words, Bach's actual music is in his mind. Think about this. The knowledge of music is in Bach's mind. But unless he speaks it out, unless he expresses it, you can't access that knowledge. It's too subtle. So then this is getting us to the next one, the Dharma. So then, using Bach as the example, what he kindly does is, all these musicians have learned this way of notating, isn't it? Writing a language, a physical, whatever you call it, I don't know how you call it, it's not like words, but that style of writing down music, highly sophisticated, a language. So he kindly writes all his knowledge down on a piece of paper so you can learn that music, so you can become your Bach. How kind of him. That's the Dharma. That's the teachings, the words that Buddha spoke. Because words are what we need to hear. We can't access his mind, so he speaks words and we write them down. That's the Dharma. That's pretty reasonable. We need to rely upon that. And then you've got the people who practice it, your community. So the absolute Sangha is a term that's, is that your Dharma? You put your knee on. This is all these years. Jen has been such a pure Buddhist, and she does this thing that she forgot. What she's doing, it's not being superstitious, but that blocks you from hearing the Dharma. You're putting your body on it, you're sitting on it. Do you understand? Yeah. It's not superstitious. It's got great meaning. If you value that, you should put it up. It's like, up there. That's what you should be holding it above your head the whole time. But she needs a cushion for her poor leg. Give her a cushion. Instead of using her Dharma book, give her a cushion. Okay. So Buddha, Dharma, and then Sangha. Yeah, so the term means superior. I think they took this, the term in Sanskrit is Arya being, superior being, means a person who's realized emptiness, has gotten the wisdom, okay? So there are millions of them, but you can't tell by looking. So anybody who's achieved that level of realization is what's called the actual Sangha, the Arya beings. But it could be the homeless person down the road, looking like some smelly person. You think, who's that creep? But there could be a highly realized being, you don't know. So the relative Sangha, so you can't tell. So the relative Sangha are represented by the Buddha in his system that developed after he became enlightened. The so-called monks and nuns, so-called monks and nuns, people who are living in a certain level of vows of discipline. This whole structure, And so from the Buddhist point of view, in general, the existence of the Dharma as a living thing, as living knowledge, is indicated by the presence in any one place of at least 4 fully ordained so-called people, monks or nuns, people who are, that's the actual relative Sangha. We can refer to this community here as our Sangha, yes, our spiritual community, but the actual presence of a Dharma is said to be, from the Buddhist perspective, as existing in the minds of at least 4, it's existing in one place when there are at least 4 fully ordained monks or nuns in one place. That's how they're talking. So Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Okay, that's a long chat. Any questions about that so far? So you're going to decide you're going to rely upon the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. Are there any questions about that so far? No? I had a question. Anybody on Zoom have a question about that? Yes, Eileen.
So can you hear me? I'm sorry. Sorry. So the absolute Sangha is all these people that are kind of with us as we're studying. In other words,
what, darling? No. The absolute Sangha is the term that refers to people who are referred to as superior beings. And yes, that's a term in Sanskrit, Arya, and that is a term referring to anyone who has a realized emptiness.
Right.
Anybody who's realized emptiness, they now joined a group of people called the Arya Sangha. but you
Yes.
can't tell who they are. So you have to have a person who looks like a relative Sangha, which is the one of people who are ordained, living in a community, in a monastery or a nunnery, wearing robes, because they're like the indicator of the presence of the Dharma, the relative Sangha.
Yes.
You
Thank
understand?
you. Yes, I
Good.
do. Thank you.
Yes, Andrea, talk to me, sweetheart.
Andres, you.
Hi, Venerable.
Oh,
You said before that there is a cause for
Speak a
everything.
bit louder, closer to the machine.
You can hear me now?
Yes, I can. Yep.
You said before that there is a cause for everything.
What,
Uh,
darling? What?
Something you said before that is a cause for everything. So sometimes it's difficult to me understand how the mind doesn't have a cause.
How what doesn't have a cause?
Mind.
The mind.
The mind, yeah.
But the mind does have a cause. So try and think of it like this. Everything that you can see at the everything you can see at the moment, whether it's a computer, a person, or indeed decide there is a mind. So it exists at this moment. So we know if it is existing at this moment, it is the effect of a previous cause, and there'll be many causes, right? So we know it just didn't come out, it didn't begin at that second. Would you agree with that? Nothing, in other words, the Buddha is saying anything that exists at this moment, it can't just start out of nowhere. There has to be always a previous moment, including your mind. That's why it's beginningless. You want a big absolute first cause of something, which is the Christian teaching, but everything itself has its own continuity of previous causes. If there is a flower in the garden, we know it came from a seed. If there is a seed in the garden, we know it came from something before. If that thing from before was existing, it came from before. So I remember with Dalai Lama one time talking about all the scientists and talking about a Big Bang. And His Holiness said, Big Bang, no problem. Just not the first Big Bang. That's all. So we always want to point to a first cause. Where did it begin? Where did I begin? Where did the world begin? We want an absolute first cause. That is intellectually and experientially a mistake, Buddha says. Everything is a continuity and can never find a first cause. But there are causes, but you're talking about a first cause. There's no such thing. Can't be logically if you posit cause and effect. It's much more granular. It's much more precise. It's not an absolute first cause. Are we communicating a little bit, Andres? Good. A little bit? Understanding? Nod your head if you understand.
Yes, Venerable.
Good.
Yes.
Okay. A little bit anyway. Okay, who else? Other questions, please. So that's a little bit, I want to talk about a Buddha Dharma Sangha, because you're going to rely upon, if you decide you want to be a Buddhist, you're going to rely upon the Buddha, and his teachings, and then the community, and that's pretty reasonable. So then, okay. Okay. So then, okay, if you do this little ceremony and you decide you're going to, take refuge, and it'll be very short, 5 or 2 minutes, we'll just repeat some words and you repeat after me, and you're deciding now, okay, now I'm a Buddhist, right? Then so how are you going to show that to yourself every day? Well, that's where we got to, have a little practice. It really helps. So basically, when you take refuge, I'm going to once this is over, I'm going to be sending you a PDF with explanation of everything we've said, with teachings on karma, teaching on all these things, and with practices and prayers in it, and various things you can, and some advice about how to set up a daily practice. So like anything, when you commit to tennis or you commit to cooking, you need to do some every day, otherwise you'll forget about it. It's obvious. You can't say you become a cook and then not cook. So to say you're a Buddhist, how does it show? Well, it means you're going to do a little bit of, practice, and you can have a practice. And I think we're creatures of habit. So it really does help us, I think, to have a discipline. And we all know we're not disciplined. And one of our biggest problems is we always give it up. I'm lazy. I forgot to do it. I can't be bothered. Then we get guilty. It really helps, I think, to have a daily practice, something in the morning and something in the evening before we go to bed, you know. But the real practice, of course, is every day. Because being a Buddhist means you're learning to, based upon the Buddha's explanation of who we are, what karma, how we create karma, and we'll talk a bit about this, what is virtuous karma, what is non-virtuous karma, how, you know, we need to apply that every day. And so that means you listen to Buddhist teachings, you study Buddhist teachings, or you read a little bit every day, and you try to apply it in your daily life, not just on your cushion, you know. So that's being so-called a Buddhist. And the key point there, of course, is, you know, there's different levels of Buddhist teachings. As we know in the Tibetan tradition, there's this term, Lamrim, graded path. So all the teachings of the Buddha are basically summarized in a very experiential way, but from the point of view of levels. You know, that's why I like to call it junior school, high school, university, you know. So the very first level of practice. Okay, so the Buddha's fundamental point is that he has found methods to get rid of suffering. Meaning he's found methods to get happy. That sounds nice, you know. So a bird needs two wings, wisdom and compassion. So if we're on the Mahayana path, the wisdom wing is the method for you to get happy. And that's the teachings we share with the Hinayana teachings, with the Theravadan path. And then you've got the compassion wing, which is the Mahayana component, and then these two together is what culminates as a Buddha. But the nuts and bolts of our daily practice is to do with your own mind. So because Buddha says the causes of suffering, he teaches this in his understanding of karma, the causes of our suffering and the causes of our happiness are indeed, certain causes are out there, you know, and the outside world. But the main causes for the Buddha, this is his really clear view, the main cause of my suffering and the main cause of my happiness can be found within my mind. So from the past, actions I've done that have programmed my mind, sowed seeds in my mind that now ripen as my happiness. Well, the causes of those aren't just my boyfriend smiling at me. That's a secondary cause. That's merely a catalyst. The main causes of my happiness are my past virtuous actions that I programmed my mind with, that I sowed seeds in my mind as a result of doing, which are now manifesting as my happiness. It's a way of putting it, you know. And so all my suffering is the fruit of my past actions, and my happiness is the fruit of my past actions. So this is a very shocking concept to us, because we're all convinced that my happiness and my suffering, I'm an innocent victim of happiness and I'm an innocent victim of suffering, that I had nothing to do with it, that I didn't ask to get born. It's not my fault. It's mummy's fault and daddy's fault and God's fault, but none of it's my fault. I'm this innocent victim that people are nice to me, and so I blame them for making me happy, and people are mean to me and I blame them for making me suffer. Buddha says this is ridiculous and never gets you anywhere, that view. That's the view of the victim. So it's a very intense view that Buddha has, but it's very delicious and encouraging, because it's showing that we come into this life programmed with our own tendencies and our own experiences, and we can then learn to be in charge of the process. So it's a very empowering idea. This takes time, because it's not the view we have now. Mostly we think mummy made me, daddy made me, or God made me, you know. We never think that we made us. It's an hilarious idea, but it's very empowering. I know when I first heard these teachings, it was really very encouraging. I loved the view of karma, you know, that I was in charge, that I brought my own stuff with me. I like that. For me, that's far more empowering than this view that someone else somehow decided to make me. I find that very scary. You know, that just produces a victim. I don't like that. I love the view of karma. But it takes time to hear it. So practicing, therefore, so the very first level of practice, and this is showing right now in this very first ceremony, when we do the second part of it, which is where we take vows. So what does that mean? Because we don't, you know, use that word in a daily life. Unless you go on a diet, you'll say, I vowed to go on a diet. We understand the meaning, but it's a very good one. It's very powerful psychologically. So this is why we're going to look at karma now. This is the fundamental teaching in Buddhism, you know. So the 5 Okay, so what Buddha is basically saying in his explanation of why we suffer is that from past programming. He would have liked that concept. He uses the analogy of seeds and fruits, because every millisecond of what we think and do and say, every millisecond of what we think and do and say stays in the mind, programs the mind, sows seeds in the mind. I think we understand this, but not when it comes to emotional stuff. But when it comes to, like, if you're learning music, we know logically every millisecond of what you think and do and say in relation to music programs you and turns you into a musician. We get that. We just don't say it like that. Well, Buddha says everything we think and do and say is what turns us into a happy person or a suffering person. That's his expertise, you know. So given that we want to be happy and don't want to suffer, then this is why we want to even enter into Buddha's path. So the vows are an expression of this whole concept of karma. So he's saying everything we think and do and say programs us. And then when you study the mind more deeply in Buddhism, he will describe that there are neurotic, deluded, I-based, fear-based, ego-based states of mind that are the source of suffering, my suffering, and therefore cause me to harm other people. And then there are the positive states of mind, the ones that program me with goodness and clarity and self-confidence and love and kindness. So we need to learn to distinguish between them. So because our suffering is caused by our deluded states of mind, and then the actions of our body and speech on the basis of those deluded states of mind, then the very first level of practice is control the body and speech. Control the servants of your mind. So Buddha's very first level of advice, you know, and again, this is a major difference in the way we describe these things when it comes, if we compare with Christianity and or Islam. It's an important point to make. I really find it's important to hear this. You know, Buddha is very similar to Jesus. He's got his little list of 10 don'ts, just like Jesus has. But this is the massive difference. I always quote this, always, and it's so important to understand. I asked my Jesuit priest friend, a Catholic priest, I said, by definition, what is a sin? In other words, what makes an action we do a bad action, a sin, as the Christians call it, or a negative action? What determines that? Who determines it? How do we determine it? It's a really crucial question. And he said, a sin, by definition, is doing what God said not to do. Now, that's powerful. If you posit a creator and you have faith in a creator, then you'll live a very good life. You're doing God's wishes. Nothing wrong. But that's not Buddha's view. For Buddha, it's a natural law. This priest said there is some aspect of natural law, why something is bad, why killing is wrong, meaning that people don't like getting killed. But the crucial piece is because God said. This is a tremendously powerful point. And that's how we think in morality. Somebody said I shouldn't do it. Oh, then when you do it, I'm a naughty girl. And that's why we try to hide our naughty things and not get caught. It's like very infantile, you know? And that's like, for the Buddha, that's ridiculous. It's like, you know, you go to your doctor and she says, don't smoke. And you say, why not? We know she doesn't say, because I say so. And if you smoke, Robina, I will give you cancer. That's the view we have of morality. Buddha completely disagrees. It's a natural law. Smoking gives you cancer, and whether your doctor sees you or not is not relevant. In other words, if you believe that cancer comes from your doctor, then when you go home and you see your doctor's not there, out come the Marlboros. Oh, I won't get cancer, she doesn't see me. That's completely absurd. We laugh at that when it comes to science. Well, that's Buddha's view about morality. But goodness, my mother used to say, my Catholic mother said, virtue, goodness, has its own rewards. Meaning Buddha agreed that that's the cause of you becoming a happy person. So non-virtuous actions of body and speech driven by anger and attachment can only end up harming oneself. Like, you know, only it's like you harm yourself, basically. So the very first level of practice in Buddhism, when he suggests we don't kill and don't steal, 3 actions of the body. Don't kill, steal. There's a list of 10. When we do the vows, it's just a 5. It's a different discussion. but this list of 10 is a general guideline, his recommendation. And the reason he says don't kill is not because he says so. The reason he says don't kill is, guess what, folks? People don't like getting killed. It's a natural law. But the fundamental reason right at the beginning he suggests we don't kill is for our own sake, because that'll program us with negative seeds, and then the karma will ripen in the future as a type of rebirth, a tendency to keep killing. You get killed, or you have experiences, you know, environmental results. Karma ripens in 4 ways. So we need to learn this if we want to understand Buddha's view of karma. You know? So it's a natural law for him. It's a natural law. He's not a boss. He's not a creator. He's not a punisher. He's not a rewarder. There's no concept like that. It's a really crucial point. So there's vows then. What's a vow? Well, I think we understand a vow. We just don't use it in daily life. I always say it's true. If you decide to drive a car and you learn to drive a car, if you wrote down everything that you vowed not to do, you'd have hundreds of vows. I will not turn the wheel left if I'm going to go right. I will not put the foot on the accelerator at the same time as the brake. There are hundreds of things. It's called learning how to do something. And so learning how to do something is either I won't do this or I will do that. Well, this is exactly what we're doing here. So why you live according to those vows, so you become a good driver. Why would you want to live according to the vow of not killing, stealing, lying, and so on and so forth? Because you want to turn into a happy, wise person. It's a method for you to become a nice person. It's not to do someone's wishes and you get punished if you don't do it. That infantile view we have about morality, it's childish. It's a method to turn you into a happy, fulfilled human being. You know, that's the power behind vows. Eventually it becomes out of compassion, but right at the very first level is compassion for yourself. So when we realize, we start to take on board that everything I think and do and say programs me. Who would want to lie, steal, or kill? Nobody on the planet. You're destroying yourself. It's like you're stabbing yourself. But we really take time to hear this one because we're so used to hearing it in moralistic terms, in punishment terms, you know, very deep in our bones. Such a mistake. So the vows then, what are these vows? It's the second part of the ceremony if you want to involve yourself in those as well. It's a vow not to kill, mainly not to kill humans, but to do your best as well not to kill any creature. Second is a vow, 2 of the body. No sexual misconduct, no stealing, no taking the ungiven, as the Tibetans would put it. And then no sexual misconduct, which broadly speaking is defined as, you know, cheating on your partner or taking someone else's partner. Broadly that. And then there's one of speech, don't say words that aren't true. And then there's a 5th one, and you don't have to take all 5. You know, the 5th one is no intoxicants, which means like alcohol or kind of mind-altering drugs that kind of destroy your senses, you know. It doesn't include cigarettes. Cigarettes is not a vow. So now ask me some questions. Any questions you want? You've got to be clear. Yes, Mandy, sweetheart, talk to me. Unmute, sweetheart. Unmute, darling. Mandy, you have to unmute, darling, so I can hear you.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Idle chatter.
Little bit closer to the machine, sweetie.
Idle chatter. How do you...
Idle chatter, it's not a vow. It's okay.
It's not a vow.
Okay, so listen, let me just explain, darling. In general, we can see this list of 10 things that Buddha would recommend. That's the very beginning level of practice. And we use those as the basis of our life, but they're not a vow. So the 10 list is the 10 of 3 of the body. You try to decide not to kill, not to steal, and not to jump on the wrong partner. Then there's 4 of speech. So let me describe those, but they're not vows, darling. The vows is a separate lot, and the only one of the speech is to not lie. But the other 3, which are very good to live according to, we need to, are not just to not to say words that aren't true, not to just rabbit on about nothing, idle, blah, 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 boring people to tears, wasting your energy, not bad mouthing behind backs, which is what we love to do. We spend all day with other people and our family and the politicians. And then not to abuse people. So using for the speech. That's just the general instructions of the Buddha, his suggestions of how to use these as the basis for our life. But when it comes to taking refuge and committing and then doing the 5 vows, there's only one of the speech, which is to not lie.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, good job. Yeah, some here has a person. What's your name, John?
Oh, John.
John, talk to me, John.
So if you're not taking the intoxicating part of the vow today, to not take intoxicants,
Intoxicants, yeah.
right? You're not choosing to do that today. If down the road,
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, for
you
sure.
have to take all the vows again, you can just take that one. Can you add that one?
You can do that. You can add that. You can take it again, but usually in front of somebody. You've got to sort of formally, you can decide that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then, so let's look a little bit at the vows then, okay? Because sometimes we think, some people say, oh, I have a tendency to lie, so I can't take the vow not to lie. But in fact, the very person who has a tendency to lie is why you need the vow not to lie, because it helps you not lie. You've got to see vows as not a thing that is restricting us. In other words, you know that you can't turn the wheel left when you want to go right. You don't feel it's restricting you. You realize it's helping you. And the more you learn the road rules and the more you learn how to drive a car, what not to do, it helps you learn to drive a car. It's very logical. But because we're so used to the punishment and reward model of religion, of being a naughty girl and getting guilty and being punished, we're very childish. We get very nervous. But we've really got to be kind of grown up about it, and realize it's for our own benefit that we're deciding to do these things. So, let's say let's say it's okay with alcohol, and very straightforward, the vow is to not have any intoxicants. Now, people often say that when the Dalai Lama gives it, he gives it differently. Well, he does, but he's allowed to. I can't do that. He always jokes and talks about how one old guy from Tibet was taking the vows and refuge from Dalai Lama's own teacher, and then the Dalai Lama suddenly and the teacher said, well, you're going to no alcohol, and this old guy said, oh, I can't give up they drink chung, it's kind of like fermented barley, Tibetan, just their favorite beer. And he said, oh, I can't give up my beer, and then the teacher said to him, don't worry, just don't get drunk. So when the Dalai Lama gives that vow, he says he gives it as not getting drunk, but I can't give it that way because it's taught by the Buddha to not drink, so that's how I can give it. I can't. You understand my point? So if you don't want to take it, then you just don't take it. It's perfectly fine. But you have it in your mind. And the thing is, again, these vows, I now want to talk about the power of vows. And I find this very inspiring, quite frankly. And again, I think it's logical, psychologically. Okay, why are vows powerful? Well, to understand that, we have to understand how we create karma, okay? So let's look at that. So in general, when, like I said before, everything we think and do and say sows seeds in the mind, okay? So in order for example, any action we do, karma or action to leave a seed in the mind, it's sort of obvious the mind has to be involved. So, if John is sitting here and he doesn't see it, there's a little ant next to his left foot, and his left foot goes on the ant and the ant dies, and he never knows about the ant, then you can argue, how can there be any karma of killing created? Because the mind isn't involved. This is a really major point. If you're walking down the street, there's John, a homeless person, and and $20 falls out of your pocket, but you never know. He got $20, he's happy. But you don't create any karma of generosity. So it's only when the mind intends to be generous, intends to kill, intends to lie, that's really crucial. Intention, not meaning motivation, but volition, I will. That's the process of creating karma. It's really important. So for example, then the Buddha would say, and Lama Zopa talks about this a lot, and he says, because, at the time of our death, we need in our little bank vault, it's my term, obviously Buddha didn't describe bank vaults, we need bucket loads, many, many rich, delicious, strong, intentional, virtuous karmic seeds of no killing, no stealing, no lying, because these karmic habits produce the future of being born with no thought to kill. You won't get killed. You'll have a happy, healthy body. This is all the fruit of karma. Buddha says we create ourselves. It's very logical. It's very surprising to us. And so if there's no intention not to, and okay, at the time of death, we need plenty of rich, delicious, non-killing karmic seeds just to get another decent human body. They describe the death process very clearly. And at the time of death, we want one of our non-killing karmic seeds to be triggered, which is what programs us for the next life. We need, it's all very described. So you need plenty of good, intentional, rich, virtuous karmic seeds in your mind. So now we spent all today, I wonder if any of us have even met one mosquito or one ant or one mouse. Therefore, we've never had the thought today, I will not kill. Therefore, today we have created no virtuous karma of not killing. And we need to do this we need to have masses of non-killing karma. So without having to intend to not kill, what's another method for having bucket loads of karma of not killing? And that is to live in vows of not killing. And I think this is logical. Like, you know, it's like it's obvious. If you just decide, if you just eat less every time you see okay, the difference between intending to go on a diet, I will not eat too much food today. That's a strong imprint in your mind, isn't it? And every time you see the food, it reminds you, so it protects you, and you keep your hand in your lap and you don't put the cake in the mouth because you've taken a vow. So vows are more powerful psychologically. But if you never intend not to eat more cake, then it's only occasionally you might decide. So it's much more powerful to say, I'm going to go on a diet. And then it protects your mind. And that's how the Lamas talk about vows. They protect your mind. So if you've got a vow not to kill and you sincerely don't want to kill, every time you're cautious, you see the ant, you try to avoid killing it. You know, you see the cockroach, you try not to kill it. It's far more powerful for the mind. And as Lama Zopa says, vows are so potent. Like Buddha says it. That vows are like a subtle physical energy visible to clairvoyance, you know, so powerful. And that they protect you and they help you form yourself into a really good human being. And so the power of vows is such, Lama Zopa says, that on the one hand, with no vow, the only time you intend not to kill is when you create the karma of not killing. Or if you have a vow not to kill, because the vows are so powerful in your mind, 24 hours a day, even when you're not thinking about not killing, you're ticking over virtuous karmic seeds and into your bank vault 24 hours a day. So as Lama Zopa says, just being good is not enough. We've got to think about this because it's not how but I think it's logic to it. The power of deciding, I don't want to harm, I don't want to kill, I don't want to lie, I don't want to steal. The more you powerfully think that when you drive a car, the better you drive a car. It's the same. This is the process of psychologically turning yourself into a good person. And the power, of course, the point here is every thought counts. I mean, in our culture, we think I can think what I like. We think thoughts do not matter. I mean, that's so nihilistic, I'm shocked, you know. From the Buddhist point of view, everything in the mind counts. The mind is the boss, you know. So the more we can be in charge of the mind and decide things and live in vows and commitments. A vow is a decision to not do something, and a commitment is a decision to do something. Okay? So is this clear, people, a little bit? You have questions? Yes, sweetheart.
I have two very
Good on.
questions.
Go down.
So the first one is about, you said like not gossiping or talking about it.
Well, mainly, that's the 10 things. Generally speaking, that list of 10, not killing, stealing or jumping on the wrong partner, not lying, rabbiting on about nothing, bad-mouthing behind backs or abusing, and then the last 3 are 3 to control the mind. These are general guidelines that Buddha would give as an entry point for anybody, and you would use that as your basis no matter what. But when it comes to vows, this is a different discussion. It's much more potent, and it's killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and intoxicants.
So let's say, someone hurt me and I.
Well, darling,
Let's say someone hurt me emotionally or psychologically
yeah,
or
yeah.
physically, and then I talk about this person with you or with a therapist. or-
that's different. That's good. That's a really good point. There's a very big difference between being angry and growing anger in your mind and talking about it to somebody to help you process it. I mean, you can be as angry, you can shout and yell and cry, but you really want to understand it and work through it. That's not being angry. That's very different. So we shouldn't be scared of our emotions.
And then, so I work with animals a lot, I work with
Yes.
horses. And if there's ticks in my horse, I have to.
What? Ticks?
If there are ticks on my.
No, I
horse,
understand you have to remove them, yeah.
I have to, I try not to kill bugs, but when I remove a tick out of my horse.
You have to kill it. You can't.
Well,
By removing the tick.
yeah, exactly, and my intention will be to save my horse from getting.
No, I understand. So this is where we've got to be this is where is really a big dilemma for us, you know, because like if you know, it's the same as taking the ticks out of your pussycat and we always do it with compassion, but it's not compassion for the tick.
Right.
So that's a big problem. That's where we really think about karma. An action of compassion has to be, I mean, that's why people have wars. You know, you're a Ukrainian, right? Well, the Russians are bombing Ukrainians because they don't like you people, and you bomb the Russians because you don't like those people. That's not compassion. It's compassion for one group, but anger for another, isn't it? So here's the same. So we've got to be very cautious because we can't avoid killing sometimes. When you're doing gardening, when you're walking down the street, when you're driving a car, look at the bugs that are killed, you know, unbelievable. So we've got to be conscious of that and try not to have intention to harm and try to have compassion and just be aware of what we're doing as much as we can. And if we do kill, try to purify this. Is why purification practice is so powerful. All this makes us more conscious.
I always like ask for forgiveness for the attack.
I know that's okay too. I know, but you know, you're about to kill me and you apologize first. It doesn't help. We've got to be just, I know, but why can't ticks, why do they have to die?
Because they give horses diseases.
But why do they have to die when you pull them out?
Because it's just, they embed themselves,
Yeah, I understand.
and when you take them out, usually they get ripped in half, there's no.
Oh, you can't take it out without hurting it. So there's no way you can not hurt ticks. I'm just asking.
I mean, I'm sure there's a way, but.
And I think this is, what I find is this, first of all, the nature of the universe is such that just by existing, we're harming. You're breathing in, your entire body's a living zoo, you know. So we've got to be aware of it. All this does is make us much more conscious and attempt not to try and feel, oh, I can't help it, so I'll do it anyway, but to try and be conscious and aware and do the best we can, not to harm. Which is why, for our own sake, purification every day is so powerful, and why whenever you do meet sentient beings, say mantras and blow on them and bless them and do your best. We've got to become conscious, you know, it's very important. Do our best, really do our best. So do you have any questions, Vivek? No? Speak up.
Venerable,
Talk to me.
am I audible?
I can speak a bit louder. I can't hear you so well, darling.
You can hear me, Venerable?
A little bit, yeah, talk to me.
Okay. Venerable, if someone is suffering from health or other problems, what are the reasons for his suffering, and according to the law of karma explained in Buddhism?
What does he say?
Somebody's suffering from health problems.
Head problem. Health problems, yeah, go on. And he said, what's the cause?
What's the karma?
What's the cause? You mean what is the karma of that, Vivek? What are the causes karmically? Is that what you're asking, Vivek?
Yes, Venerable. This is the
Okay, in
same
general,
thing.
listen, Vivek, what I'm going to do, I think I've sent you already different PDFs, haven't I, about karma. But in general, the principle, Vivek, the principle of karma is if good health is the fruit of past life, not harming others in general. So if we have good health, that's one of the karmic results of our own past actions of not harming others. So if we have ill health, and everybody does, we've all had countless past lives, Vivek, and we've all got countless karmic seeds in our mind. So every time we have ill health, that's the fruit of some negative karma of harming others. So everything is like that. Everything we experience, whether it's happiness or suffering, they're all the fruit of past actions of our own. That's the idea. So of course, we can see fairly, you know, because there are 4 ways that our karma ripens. One result of harming others is to get a rebirth not as a human, as a very suffering animal, for example. One result of not harming others would be to get a human body. There's 4 ways karma ripens. One is a type of rebirth. One is a tendency in the mind of that rebirth. One is an experience from others, and one is the environmental result. So, for example, not killing, the karmic result is to get a human body. The next result would be to be born in this life with no thought to kill. That means you've lived in vows of not killing in the past. The third result of not killing would be that no one kills you and you don't die young. And the fourth karmic result is environmental karma, means you'd have a very healthy body, the air's not polluted, the water's not polluted, and whatever you eat would make you healthy. So in general, the way we are every day, how we're treated by others, our own mind, our own body, all of these are the fruit of our karma. So learning the basic principles of karma can help us understand this. Do you understand?
Okay.
Good.
Yes, Venerable.
Okay, good. Anybody else, people? Yes, who's that? Joe, go sweetheart, talk to me.
Hello, Venerable. Thank you. I have a question about the text that you sent us, the words taking refuge. And it said, I take refuge until the time of death. So from this moment until the time of death.
What's he saying? Say it again, Joe. It's not so clear.
So in the words for taking refuge that you sent us,
What?
PDF.
What, darling? Say it again.
in the text that you sent us, words taking refuge.
What's he
It's
saying?
from this moment.
Remember the email you said, which are the refuge vows, remember?
Yeah.
That's what he's asking about.
Take you,
I'm going to be sending you a PDF which has these vows, explains the refuge, explains your commitments. I'm going to say some more here. It explains karma, how to purify. It's got a list of practices. It's got various explanations and things you can study. But you've got this already, I thought, Joe. I've said this to you already, haven't I?
My question is this: why is refuge from this moment until the time of my death? Time of my death. Why is refuge stop at the time of my death?
I think he's saying, why am I taking refuge from this moment until the time of my death? Why
Oh,
does
see,
it
that's
say
what
the
you said
time
to
of
me
my
in the
death?
email, yeah. Because you have to renew them each rebirth. So the body, if you took bodhisattva vows, they go from life to life. So we've taken refuge in the past, and you can only commit for Joe, you know. So next life you can take them then again. So it's usually in this life we say it like that. That's all. But it carries on till next life, Joe. Definitely. No problem. All right. Thank you. I'm sorry, I forgot your question. You asked me in the email and I said an answer. I'm so sorry. I didn't hear you well. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Don. Yes.
The PDF is sent to everybody?
Yeah, I'll be sent to all of you.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'll be sending to you, and I'll also be giving you a name, explaining your name to you, and then send you this PDF and explain a daily practice. And you can then communicate with me about it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So having taken refuge, you're going to be committing to a few things. So a commitment is a decision to do something, and a vow is a decision to refrain from something. So the commitments would be, and this again for our own benefit, you know, it's like we're doing a contract. I'm going to do this thing. You're going to agree to it. We shake hands, and you sign the contract, and we'll each do our job. I'll take care of you the best I can, and you won't lose me. You know, I'll stick around, I promise.
Mm.
And then you do your bit. So that the commitments, one is to at least take refuge in your mind, saying, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha 3 times in the morning and 3 times at night, to remind you. It's one commitment. Another one is to make offerings. Well, it's a very powerful practice. Lama Zopa loves the thing of offerings for our own benefit. It's having the attitude of wanting to give something. And so this is why it's really helpful, because again, we're creatures of habit and shape and form. It's really helpful to have like an altar, like a surface, not lower than your waist, where you might have an image of your teacher or an image of the Buddha or a statue, and then you would make offerings. So, okay, an altar would consist of a representation of enlightened body, which would be a picture or a statue, representation of enlightened mind, which would be like a text or a book, and representations of enlightened speech. The book is the speech, and mind will be like a picture or a stupa. And I'll explain all this in the letter. So it's good to have an altar, and then you would do the first thing in the morning. You would take refuge, even just standing up there, and then you'd make offerings. And I'll explain in this practice, in this PDF, how to make the water bowl offerings if you want to do that. Like up here, there's water bowls, aren't there? You got all the funny ones. So you have there's a way of doing this nice practice. I love doing my water bowls every morning. You know, I love this. And it's a very meaningful practice. Often you're thinking of giving. And this practice, I explain it in the PDF. Or if you don't want to do this sort of little ritual of the 8 different offerings, you can just offer like a flower or something. And that's a really auspicious practice. So you're committing to make offerings every day. You're also committing to, when you eat food or drink, there's a little prayer you can thinking of offering to the Buddha. It's just a way of reminding us, that's all, of our path, you know. And then you're committing to at least have respect for the representations of enlightened body, speech, and mind. There's half a dozen things. It's just the little reminders, that's all. And then the vows are the second part of the ceremony where we do those 5-day vows. So you're vowing to do those ones. So it's, yeah, okay. Any questions from that? No. I mean, all this is sort of like, you know, ancient stuff. It's so important to see meaning. Because everything we think and do and say, it reminds us, you know, it's really helpful. Yeah.
I have a question for Andres.
Who is it? Hello, yes, Andres. Talk to me, sweetheart.
Venerable, in the moment, the change of the offerings of my altar, what kind of thing can I keep in mind at the moment of change the offerings?
And when do you do that? In the evening or in the morning?
Oh, in the morning.
Okay, there's nothing particularly to think. It's just to treat it with respect because it's blessed water. So you'd clean it. You'd pour it into the jug from your bowl. You'd clean the bowl very nicely, and you'd take the jug of water and you'd put it in a clean place outside. You wouldn't put it down the sink. Just to treat it with respect because it's blessed. That's the main attitude. Do you understand? And then there's when you do the new offering, so you know how to do the water bowl offerings, do you?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, good. So just I had this it's in the PDF. Some teachings from Lama Zopa there. Yeah. Okay. Yes, Roxy.
Hi, Venerable. Thank you. I just wanted to ask about if we've already taken refuge and we're mainly here for the vows, are you going to give us all a refuge name?
Sorry, I have to stop. What time is that?
It's 6:30.
It says 6:30, does it?
Yeah, 6:30.
What time's the teaching start?
Refuge is 5 to 6.
I know, but I didn't ask that. What time does the teaching start?
7:30.
Okay, we've got time. Good. So go on, Roxy. Sorry, I interrupted. Go again.
That's okay. If we already have taken refuge, are you going to give us another refuge name?
No, darling, you just renew it. It's good just to renew. No need for a new name.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay, sweetheart. What else, people? Are you clear? Hello, Mandy, darling.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can, sweetie.
So I get up quite early in the morning. It's my day off today, but normally I get up quite early. And I just heard you then. So it's okay to do it at night time or in the afternoon?
You know, I think there's something about starting the day with something and finishing the day. It's kind of logical, you know. Yeah. It really helps to start the day. It doesn't have to be long, Mandy. I mean, you have to get up to go to work.
I gotta get up at 5 o'clock. So
you get up at 5 or you get up at
yes.
Well, I mean, the whole for you to do your offerings, I think if you make the effort, it's an extra 15 minutes, you don't have to do much practice, you'll really appreciate it because it sets you off in the right direction. You do your little motivation, you do your 3 prostrations, you take refuge, you do your offerings, and you motivate for the day. It's good for the mind, Mandy. You'll really appreciate, I think. It doesn't have to be long, darling. It can be short.
Thank you.
Okay. What else, Pete? Everything's okay, everybody? What else? Andres? Yes, sweetheart, go.
So one thing with me, I have like a lot of practices that I'm trying to incorporate.
Are you?
Like,
Buddhist practices, you mean, or other practices?
Not all Buddhist, like I try to do 1 to 2 meditations a day.
Okay, good.
I do this thing called the morning pages, we write through, it's like journaling.
Okay.
So I find it a little hard to kind of incorporate everything into the morning, into the night, like.
Well, I mean, are you talking about the commitments you've got already, or are you talking about more commitments?
Yeah, like adding on commitments,
Well, I mean, you've got a Buddhist practice already?
not too much.
Oh, I see. So it's not Buddhist practice. Well, that's up to you to decide. I mean, then maybe, but I'm not talking hours here. I mean, I'm talking about commitments to take refuge in the morning. It's like 5 seconds, one practice, and then to make offerings. But I mean, it's up to how you feel. I mean, if you like the Buddha, you think you're taking refuge as a Buddhist? Is that what you're doing? That's why you're here, right? We're thinking about it.
Yeah.
But you have to decide if you want to do that.
Mhm.
And if it is that, if you want to do that, then this is just a way of reminding you. You have an altar, have a picture of the Buddha or something, I don't know, and you'd make an offering before you go to where we do what you do, and then it's like we're talking 5 minutes.
Oh, that's.
It can be 4 hours. It's up to you to decide.
Yeah.
You just tick the boxes,
Yeah.
So you've got to see the meaning of it and see why you want to commit. I mean, if you feel, you've got to decide if that's what you want. And then to see the benefit of committing to these half a dozen things. Do you understand my point?
Yeah.
Is to help you internalize more this approach,
Mhm.
So you understand? You've got to want it.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Yes, somebody else. Julie, how are you? All right. You okay? Good. What else, people? I mean, I'm sure there's more I should have told you. Joey, yes, talk to me, Don. Joey,
Yes. Hi, Venerable. When we do the 5 things, is it necessary to do all 5 or just do the ones that we?
You mean the vows?
Yes, the vows, yeah.
Joey?
Yes.
No, you don't have to. You don't have to vow. You don't have
Okay.
to. No. Which ones do you have a worry about?
Well, I originally thought that with this ceremony it was 3. I thought it was the lying, the stealing, and the killing. But I'm hearing now that it's 5. So the extra 2 that would be added would be the sexual misconduct and then the no intoxicants.
That's
and
right.
the one that that I'm not quite interested in doing at just the one at the moment would be the intoxicants. Yeah.
So then you don't take it. It's fine if you want to.
Okay, that's fine.
Have your shot of heroin every day and you don't take it out.
How did you know, Venerable? How did you know? All right, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, the thing is to see the advantage of these things. It's sort of we've got to see the advantage psychologically of doing these actions. Like I said to you, what's your name?
Mine, Joe.
Joe. You got to see, not just, I'll become a Buddhist. What am I supposed to do? Oh, all right. Got to see the advantage of it.
Yeah.
You understand? You've got to see the reason, otherwise don't do it and wasting time.
Waiting first.
Yeah.
Contemplating.
Precisely, of course. What about you? You all right?
Yeah, I'm great.
Who are you?
My name is Mars.
Mars, okay.
I'm a friend of JD's.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, I like this a lot because it's like, this is kind of the type of person I want to be.
There you go. That's the way to say it, actually. And that to hear it like that is just sensible, instead of the religious one, oh, I shouldn't do this and I shouldn't do that and I'm a naughty person, which is how we think. It's so ridiculous. No, okay, good. That's exactly. I mean, who doesn't want to be a happy, wise, but kind, loving, compassionate person? I mean, God Almighty, who doesn't want? So you've got to be intentionally decide you want to do that. So then do the causes of it. If you want something, you got to create what the causes are.
I want to do it all, actually.
Oh my God, that's become a nun as well, doesn't it?
Ready for Detroit, so
Well, who knows?
the other ones.
We know where it all takes you.
Yeah.
Go, darling, go.
So, those water bowls behind you, how many are we supposed to have? It looks
Well,
like
okay, darling,
a
okay.
few minutes, some of them, like what's going?
This
Yeah.
is just a way to do it's sort of a lazy way, but people do it because it's cute.
Right.
But the point is, it's a really, okay, the practice, I'll just describe it roughly. This basically is based on a tradition coming from India. Atisha in the 11th century. Okay, there's this tradition. It's from the Vajrayana, actually, where you have what they call the 8 sense offerings. There's the objects of the senses, because Tantra is to do energizing the senses. So the 8 sense offerings that you would offer to the Buddha is based on this nice, I love this story. It's based on this if you have a guest. So first you welcome your guest and you'd wash, I think you want water for washing the feet first. When you have it's Indian tradition, okay, I suppose. You'd wash their feet. So the first one is water for washing. Then you bring them in and you offer them a nice drink. So the next offering is water for drinking. And the next one is you probably put a garland of flowers around their neck, and now it's the offering of flowers. And now you get the incense out, and now it's called the offering of incense. And the next one, maybe it's getting dark by now, so you turn the lights on, the offerings of light. Then it's the offerings of perfume, and I always think it's getting sexy now. The offerings of perfume, then offering of food, and now you bring out the dancing girls, it's the offering of music. So it's such a sweet. So Atisha, when he got to Tibet, said, in order to not get attached to your own offerings, if you have a beautiful this, and he said the water in Tibet was so pure that you just offered water, but you visualized these offerings. So I love this practice. I mean, my first one in the morning, I have different altars, I do my offerings. I love this practice. And people it's just kind of very meaningful. You do it very beautifully. You have really nice little bowls. You buy beautiful ones, like you have the most special guests, and you'd offer them being beautiful. It's very meaningful to start the day like this. Doesn't have to be very long, Mandy. Don't panic. It's all right. I love this practice, I think it's a lovely practice. It's good for the mind. You're the beneficiary of it. Buddha doesn't need your boring old offerings. That's it. You gotta say. We need to do it, we're the beneficiary. That's good for the mind. It's really good to start the day with that. Anyway, that's the offering. So I describe it in the thing. I don't know, I think there's millions more I should be saying, but I haven't said it. So why don't we do the little ceremony for those who'd like to do it? So what you've got to do now is, if you can, you've got to do 6 prostrations, 3 prostrations to the Buddha on the altar, and then 3 prostrations in your mind to the person in front of you whom you're going to make a karmic connection with. And I didn't tell you that part. You've got to be clear you want to take it with the person here. You've got to be clear you want to take it with the person. You've got to be clear about that person, because you're making a karmic connection with that person as one of your teachers. So that's going to be, I didn't mention that, that's important. So if you don't feel you want that, then you don't take refuge today, because I'm the person, I'm afraid. Okay? You've got to decide, because I'm representing Buddha for you. So we make this kind of karmic bond with each other, and I promise I will do what I can to lead you to enlightenment, no matter how long it takes. You won't get rid of me, all right? I do my job, I promise, I promise, I promise. So anyway, what I was saying, so you've got to do 6 prostrations. If you don't know how to do it, just follow somebody who does know, who knows how to do a proper prostration. So maybe, let me see how you do one, Jenny. Many people do them really wrong. Let me see you do a prostration.
I'm kidding.
A simple one, not a long one, not a long one.
Not the long.
No, 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 no.
Because I just had me.
Just show me how you do it. I want to make sure you do it right. Just wait. Keep your fingers together, all your fingers together. That's it. If anything, slightly turned in, and just try. That's it. That's good enough. So follow Jinnah. Do your best, and do. If you want to, do your 6 prostrations. If you don't want to do them, you don't have to. But if you're going to take, you want to take refuge, is that you feel you want to do this refuge?
Yeah.
Is this the first teaching you've heard?
I'm sorry?
Is this the first teaching you've heard?
This is the first
Is this the first teaching you have heard?
Buddhism?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so you're familiar with all this stuff.
I'm familiar, but I feel it's very like subtle details that I like.
No, I understand. But what I'm saying is, if you want to take refuge, you want to take refuge today, is that what you plan to do? You're just going to sit there and relax. You don't have to, because if you want to, you should do the prostrations.
Okay.
Okay, put your kata away. Put it on your chair or something. So you're going to relax. You're not going to do. Not time yet. I think you should wait.
I'm not sure.
Well, that's all. If you're not sure, then you sit there quietly. When the time is right, you will be. So if you're going to renew your refuge, you're going to do your refuge, renew your refuge. You do 6 prostrations, 3, follow Jinnah. So just do your best. And I'll sing the mantra. Om Namo Manjushriye, Namo Sushriye, Namo Tamashriye Svaha. So can you follow Jinnah? Can you see Jinnah, you people? He should get close to the camera, Jinnah. Om Namo Manjushriye, Namo Sushriye.
Do that.
Just read it out. You should prostration. Don't you, stop, I've got to stop, I'm sorry. Andres, you don't know how to do prostration? You don't know how to do prostrations, Andres and Trinidad?
Yes, we already did.
You need
the
to do them.
prostration.
Unless
They
you're
did it before.
You need to do your prostration, come on. Okay, 6. If you don't want to take refuge, then you don't do them. And if you have issues doing prostration, then you're not ready to take refuge. Be blunt. If you're old, you can't do it like Eileen, then don't do it. So get off your bums. Come on. Oh, Namo Manjushri, Namo Sushri. 4, Sheila. Sheila, you've been a Buddhist how many years? Here, like this. 4. Follow Jinnah. Oh, Namo Manjushri, Namo Sushri. No, and you don't go on your knees first, go on your hands first. And you do 4 here, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Body, speech, mind, and then blah, blah, whatever. Oh, no, I sound like a policeman, don't I? Oh, Namo Manjushri, Namo Sushri, Namo Tamashri, Svaha. I want to know what's wrong with Andres. Why aren't you prostrating, you two? Andres, please answer me. Why are not Andres and
We already prostrate the prostrations.
They what?
They did it before.
I don't care. You do it now, for God Almighty's sake. 6 of them.
Did it? We already did them.
We already did them.
You've got to do 6 prostrations, please. We're beginning the ceremony.
We did.
Venerable.
We did.
You've got to do them now. I didn't see you do them. You're sitting on your bum. Get off your feet and do 6 prostrations. Not being a policeman, really. I just have to shout. That's better. Now I can see you doing them. It's so efficient, meaningful. Do you know how to do them, Mandy? You're okay? Good on you, girl.
I did try.
It's been a wonderful practice. I love my prostrations. I do it every morning and every night.
You do it?
Prostrations, 20 each time. I used to do 200.
Oh my God.
I used to do 200 naked. And I sweat as the best physical yoga in the whole world, I tell you. Okay, that's better now. And you don't go on your knees first, Trinidad. You go on your hands first. Sweetheart, don't go on your knees first. You'll hurt your body. Go onto your hands first. Hands first. No, not knees. No. Oh, your hands. That's right. Then your knees. You okay, Christina? Are you there, Christiana? Are you managing? Are you all being offended by my shouting? Alessandro, how are you? Are you doing okay?
Doing very good, Venerable. Thank you.
You doing all right, Alessandro?
Yes, doing very good. Thank you, Venerable.
Good. I'm very happy. I know I'm screaming like a maniac to try and get my point. I wish you now. Thank you. Now they did them. Well done. You're so eager to come.
Thank you, Venerable.
Getting it. They've got a translator there because they're in Colombia. Okay, here we all are. So now we've done all the teachings. So all we do is the ceremony, which is 3 minutes. So now you got to kneel on your right knee. So kneel on your right knee if you can. If you can't, then don't worry. And put your hands, just put on the chair. And put your hands in prayer mudra like this. And somehow we think, okay, we just think the Buddha is here and all the holy beings since the Buddha are all here, blissing out that all of us people together, Jennifer and Viviana and Vivek and Gina and Alan, everybody, Sarah and Mandy and Brad and John here and Mars and everybody, we're all here together on this special day at Shantideva Center in New York City, in Brooklyn, on the 3rd of June, doing this marvelous ceremony, plugging into Buddha's world, plugging into this kind of power source, and then receiving these commitments and these vows from me, who got it from my teachers, who got it from my teachers, who got it from my teachers, right back to the Buddha. So feel like we're plugging into this power source right back to the Buddha and feel the blessings from the Buddha and the blessings of all the holy beings since the Buddha, all surrounding us and being very happy that what we're basically doing is committing our lives to become better human beings. How incredible. For our sake and the sake of others. So amazing. So just a few words now. Repeat after me. Venerable. I want to hear your voices, so unmute. It'll be a cacophony, but never mind. I want to hear your voices, all shouting after me. You got it? Ready? Okay, good. Christian, put on your, I want to hear your voice, so unmute. Christiane, unmute. I can't hear her. Christiane, unmute. Unmute.
Oh.
Yeah. Unmute.
Yes.
There we go.
Can
That's
you
it.
hear me now?
Shout after me. Venerable.
Venerable.
Please listen to me.
Listen to me.
I, whose name is.
I,
whose name is
Always.
From this moment.
from this moment,
from this moment,
Go
refuge
I will rely
upon the Buddha
until the time of
I
my death.
go refuge to the
Buddha,
the supreme path.
Supreme being.
I go refuge to the Sangha,
Path.
supreme
I
Can't hear what you're saying, Venerable.
as Upassika at the time of my death.
I'd like to follow and say this, but I have no idea what you're saying.
So then, okay, so we'll make more space between. I'll start again. Venerable.
Venerable.
Please listen to me.
Please listen to me.
I,
whose name
is Louise. His name is Yanni.
from this moment.
From this moment
Until the time of my death.
until the time of my death.
Take refuge.
take refuge
In the Buddha.
the Buddha.
Supreme being.
The supreme being.
I take refuge.
Take refuge
In the Sangha.
in the Sangha.
Sorry, the Dharma.
Dharma.
The supreme path.
The supreme path.
I take refuge.
Refuge
In the Sangha.
Sangha.
Assembly.
The supreme assembly.
Please accept me.
Please accept me.
The word I'm going to say is upasika, the person who's holding these vows and commitments. Please accept me
Please accept me as a Upasika.
Accept me
as an upasika
Until
the time of my death.
my death.
until the time of my death.
Two more times. Venerable. Please listen to me.
Please listen to me.
I, whose name is.
Whose name is Louise.
From this moment.
From this moment
Until the time of my death.
Until the time of my death.
Take refuge in the Buddha.
Refuge in the Buddha.
Supreme being.
The supreme being.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
The supreme path.
The supreme path.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
The supreme assembly.
The supreme assembly.
Please accept me.
Please accept me.
As an upasika. Until the time of my death.
Until the time of my death.
Venerable.
Robina.
Please listen to me.
Please listen to me.
From this moment. Until the time of my death.
Until the time of my death.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
Supreme being. I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
Supreme path. I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Supreme assembly.
Supreme assembly.
Please accept me. Please
accept
me
me.
as a Lupa seeker
Sika.
until the time of my death.
The time of my death.
I'm going to click my fingers now, but you say, I say, okay, I say, this is the method, and then you say, excellent. This is the method.
Excellent.
Click my fingers, which I can't do very loudly, and you imagine when I click my fingers that somehow we receive this blessing all the way back through all the holy beings and an unbroken chain of amazing human beings right back to the Buddha. You receive this in your mind stream and be very, very happy. So now we take the vows. So you pay attention to which vows you want, and you be silent if you don't want them. And now you have to call me Lopon, which is one of the words in Tibetan. Lopon. Please listen to me. Just as the Arhats, Arhat is a Sanskrit word that means enemy destroyer. They've achieved the goal. So just as the Arhats of the past, have refrained from killing. Stealing. Lying. Sexual misconduct. And intoxicants. So will I. Whose name is. From this moment. Until the time of my death.
Until the time of my death.
Refrain from killing. Stealing. Lying. Sexual misconduct. Intoxicants. I will follow. I will do it. Big words, I don't know where they come from. A second time. Lopon. Please listen to me. Please listen to me. This is the Arhats of the past. Just as the Arhats of the past. Have refrained from killing. Stealing. Lying. Sexual misconduct. Intoxicants. So will I. My name is. From this moment. My death. Refrain from killing. Stealing. Lying. Sexual misconduct. And intoxicants. So will I.
Follow.
From this moment.
Until the time of my death.
No, that's okay. One knee. You got one knee? You can't do one knee. Or you don't. It's okay. Do it again. It's all right. It's okay. Okay. I'm just trying to be a good girl. I refrain from killing. Stealing. Sexual misconduct. I will do it.
We'll do it.
Until the time of my death.
Third time, I will refrain from those vows.
I will refrain from those actions.
I will follow.
I will follow.
Click my fingers, and again you feel you receive these amazing vows in your mind stream that purify your mind. It's even a subtle energy that's visible to holy beings, purifying your mind, strengthening your mind, keeping your mind, be so happy about it. And you receive more from the Buddha. All right. Well, this is the method. You say excellent. This is the method.
Excellent.
Oh, really, finished. Yes. Oh my God, I always get so hysterical when I do this. I'm unholy. Are you all okay? Everyone's not having a mental breakdown. You're doing okay? Christian, where
Thank
are
you, Robina.
Where are you, sweetheart? Christian, where are you?
Thank you. In Hanover, Germany.
Oh, good, darling. I'm happy to see you. You
Yeah,
feeling
thank
okay?
you. Thank you very much.
You've understood everything, Christian?
Yeah, everything, Robina. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Everything is okay.
Everything's okay, Alessandro?
Everything is okay, Venerable. Thank you.
Janina, you're okay?
I'm good, thank you, Venerable.
Good, Tara, you're okay?
Yes, Venerable, thank you.
She's old, you've done it before. Ala, she's done it before. Mandy, you're okay, Mandy, in Brisbane?
Yes, thank you.
Good. Vivek, you're okay?
Yes, Venerable, thank you so much.
All right, I'm sorry. And Jennifer, you're good, you're there. Everybody, okay, good, everybody. Well, that's it, we're done. So you now, the ball is now in your court, and you have to email me, every one of you, email me, robinacourtin@mac.com, okay? Email me, and I will give you a name, and then I will give you these practices, and then we can discuss. It might be a lot. Don't panic, discuss it with me, work it out, we'll work it out together. And I will do what I can to support your practice, as long as we both live, okay? I promise, that's my commitment. So, you must email me. Alan, where are you, Alan? Where are you?
Oh, I'm Michigan.
Where are
Michigan.
you?
Michigan.
Oh, good, okay, so you got my email, Alan, or not?
Yes, yeah.
You got my email, so email me, the ball is in your court to email me. But the first name I will give you is my name, which I got from Lama Zopa, Tubten. And in the first syllable, Tub, I'll explain this in the letter, T-H-U-B, it's an aspirated T. It's not th, it's T. Tub was one of the words of the Buddha, and then ten means teachings, Tubten. I got that from Lama Zopa, who got it from Ling Rinpoche, who was the Dalai Lama's tutor, who got it from the 13th Dalai Lama, Tubten Gyatso. So that's where our name comes from, the 13th Dalai Lama. You'll get that name, my first name, and then I'll choose a special second name for you when you write to me, okay?
Thank you, Robina.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Are you okay, Louise? You're all right then?
Yes,
Louise?
thank you, Venerable.
Okay.
Yes.
Where are you, Mikhail? You're in Germany as well. Okay. Mikhail, you're in Germany? Mikhail? Where are you?
Sorry, I'm in Denmark.
Okay, good. All right, everybody, I'm so happy to see you all. I hope it was useful. And I mean, I don't know why I always shout, but I always shout. I can't help it. And then, anyway, I'm very happy to see you all, and we make a karmic connection with each other. And Mary Jo and Eileen and Sunny, everybody, you all do your best. Never give up on your potential. That's the main point. The reason you're doing this is to strengthen your own commitment to you being a better human being for your sake and the sake of others. Remember, it's for your benefit. You are the beneficiary of abiding by the karma. You are the beneficiary of living in vows. You are the beneficiary of these commitments. So be very happy. Amazing. And you think of this world, how many people commit themselves to be better people? I don't think so. So pretty incredible. Be very happy that you're doing this. Be so happy, okay? Jangcho, put the prayers up, please. Jangcho, Sencho, Rinpoche, Ma Ke Panam, Ke Yuchi. We'll do the words here on the screen. Okay, so, okay, short no. Yeah, this one. Okay, so this one, first of all, due to the merits of these virtuous actions, meaning the karmic seeds we have planted in our mind from doing this activity of taking refuge in the lay vows, because of this, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha, become like a Buddha guru, and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. And then may the supreme jewel, bodhicitta, that has not arisen, arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Okay, people, turn the prayers on now so I can see everybody. Thank you, darling people. I'm so grateful, and I will look forward to hearing from you. And I will answer you as soon as possible. And I won't give up. But if you want to remind me if I don't answer immediately, you're very welcome. And then we discuss it, we talk about it, we do whatever is helpful, okay? Okay, people, clear?
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable.
Thank you.
I give you your name, you should have something in just thinking of giving me something in back. Give me something in return. So have your hands, imagine an offering in your hands or something, an offer. And I will give you your name. I've given you this refuge. Thank you, Ayla. Ayla is offering a stupa. It's very auspicious. So have something to offer. Get something, Aileen. Eileen, get something to offer, anything. It's
Oh.
auspicious, it's really auspicious to have something to offer. That's it, beautiful. Buddhas, look, stupas, Buddhas, everything is beautiful. What have you got, Vivek? Just offer your heart, Vivek. What have you got there? That's it, beautiful, perfect, Vivek. Look, perfect, perfect, perfect. Jeff is offering a kata. Everybody's offering something. It's wonderful. Very auspicious. Brad, well done. So auspicious. All right, sweethearts, look at you. Everybody. Beautiful. Yes, yes, yes. So auspicious. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I will do my best to help all of you, I promise. Thank you so much, sweethearts. Much love and goodbye. I'm going to turn you off now, okay?
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Sunny. Thank you, Sunny.